It's not very often that I agree with the New Republic, which, by the way, used to be a good magazine in the 1980s and even 90s, has now become a kind of a rag. And when I say I agree with it, what I actually mean is I'm agreeing with it, but from a completely different perspective. So there's an interesting article. It's called "The Rise of Right-Wing Hacks in Federal Courts." It's written by a guy named Jason Linkins, and Jason Linkins is talking about the conservative court. And he says that every time the court makes a kind of a conservative decision, ranging from the Dobbs decision to Judge Eileen Cannon, who, by the way, is a Trump appointee, on the Mar-a-Lago raid requiring a special master, the article says, all these leftists come out and talk about how the legal reasoning is horrible and how the judge doesn't seem to have a good grasp of the salient issues, or how the conservative court is misreading the Constitution. And the article goes on to say, all this analysis is beside the point, because the conservatives don't really care whether their decisions are anchored in the law or not. They don't really care if their decisions are fully anchored in the Constitution or not. They basically are right-wingers, and they're doing the right-wing thing. They're coming up with a right-wing outcome, and then they're finding some justification for it. Now, first of all, I do want to point out this is exactly what the liberals do. The liberals say that we have a living constitution, its meaning is fluid, and so progressives and liberals we'll come up with a liberal result that we like, a more equitable result, a more diverse result, we'll find, abortion rights, homosexual rights, things that really aren't in the Constitution, but we will kind of conjure them into the Constitution through a kind of crafty legal reasoning. So it's kind of amazingly hypocritical for them to be faulting conservatives for doing this. And there'll be many conservatives who take offense and go, no, our decisions are principled. We are anchoring them in the Constitution. But I want to say, what if the guy is right? What if this liberal writer is right that conservatives are doing exactly what the liberals do? They are coming up with conservative outcomes, and then they're finding some justification for it that can be linked to the Constitution. Let's remember, the Constitution doesn't address every specific. So if Judge Eileen Cannon is trying to figure out what do we do in the case of these classified documents, there's going to be arguments on both sides. The Trump people are going to say, hey, listen, he's the president. He has the right to classify or declassify. Let's say some classified documents ended up in his possession. At least they were under a padlock. They weren't really being Xeroxed and handed out to people. So there was a more civilized way to get them back. And then the liberals are going to say, well, no, this endangers national security. The point is, there's not always a single rule that you can point to that settles the issue. So what's the judge going to do? I guess what I'm saying is that we, our side, should feel confident that if the other side is being unprincipled in the way I just described, and by unprincipled here I simply mean that they are not looking to some legal or constitutional principle and then using the principle to dictate the outcome. Rather, they're coming up with the outcome and then finding the reason to anchor the outcome in. And I'm saying, since the other side is doing it, so what if we're doing it too? So in other words, to Jason Lincoln's accusation, conservatives are being unprincipled, I go, so? We're doing what you've been doing. So to the degree that you treat the Constitution as a kind of malleable piece of clay that you can twist any which way you want, we're going to do the same thing. Because quite honestly, we're not going to accept a regime in which you twist the Constitution when you can, and then we are bound by it. So it's kind of like saying, if we're going to play tennis, and you're going to say, hey, listen, I don't care if there's a net. I'm going to lower the net when I hit the ball. I'm going to move it up when you hit the ball. That's because I control the net. Well, we're going to say when we control the net, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to lower the net when we hit the ball, and we're going to raise the net when you hit the ball. And if you are offended by that kind of a game, you might want to stop playing it on your side. So when you start showing us some principle on your side, which is to say, in this case, fidelity to the law, fidelity to the Constitution, and looking to the actual animating spirit and the words of the Constitution to make your decisions, once you're doing that, then you can expect us also to do the same.